right, standing posture. Why are we doing this? It's the foundation of all movement. Working on this standing posture will potentiate faster progress later on in the program, obviously mechanically, but also neurologically. This will help our mind mold to these new positions while feeling safe to adapt. What we want to do is find equilibrium in this standing posture before we progress into movement. We want to balance tension and compression in our body. We want to balance the anterior, the front side of our body with the back side of our body. And we want to balance the muscle activation throughout our entire kinetic chain so that we can achieve optimal resting position without having to stress about it all the time. For that to happen, we must improve our relationship with gravity so that we can regenerate and again find that balance, that equilibrium, that harmony with gravity that is trying to constantly compress our bodies towards the ground. So what we see in a lot of folks is this forward hip shift, right? These hips are shifting over the toes because gravity is pushing down on us, and our body, if it's not able to find healthy tension, it's just going to be dominated by this position, and then it's going to have to find compensation. So with this forward hip shift, the lower back is tight, the upper abs are compressing the ribs downward, and we got tight hip flexors. We want to be able to change this picture almost to the inverse of that, which would be tension in the T-spine, tension in the lower abs, and tension in the glutes and hamstrings. That way we don't have to feel tightness in these other areas. So again, we want to go from an anterior pelvic shift into this neutral standing position. For this to happen, we must work on it and rewire the brain so that it becomes our default settings. So from this lateral view, if I'm getting dominated by gravity, usually the first thing that happens is that these hips shift forward, my knees bend over my toes, and I round the upper back while curling the lower back. If I want to do the opposite of that, I need some tension in this T-spine right in this region. I also need to curl these lower abs in and activate those. And then I need to turn on the glutes. That way, my hips will be over the midfoot. The knees don't have to excessively bend or hyperextend. And then my rib cage, shoulders, and head should fall in line after that. So feel the pressure in your heels and think about your spine as a long elastic band that you are trying to elongate as much as possible for now. And then just like anything else, this has to be a meditation. If this position is inaccessible to you at first, a good way to find those muscle groupings is to shift your trunk forward a little bit. And then instead of anterior tilting your hips, find that posterior tilt. That will help connect the glutes and the hamstrings. And then breathe into this position with a neutral head. Each breath should elongate your spine, expand the ribs in all directions, and get the rib cage away from your pelvis. That's going to stretch this abdominal wall, but you're also going to need to find tension in this area, especially the lower abs. So once you find that posterior tilt and get the glutes fired up, then find as much tension as you can in the lower abdominals. Then you can start to try to shift your hips a little bit forward, but I do not want to compensate into the other side of the spectrum where I'm going back to that normal position. What I want to do eventually is get the tension out of my hip flexors so that I'm able to extend into this standing position while holding the tension in my glutes, my lower abs, and my T-spine. The ideal effort for this is a 4 out of 10 because again, we want to teach our body that this is a resting position. But since we don't use these at all or the T-spine, these two muscle groups might fatigue quickly.